victims and pretty much anyone else that we think may have had anything to do prior to or after the crash. Now, there are parties to the investigation. NTSB, of course, leads the investigation, but parties are Amtrak, BNSF, the Federal Railway Administration, and then several of the unions, the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, SMART, Maintenance and Way, and we also have representatives from the Volpe Transportation Center, which is part of the Department of Transportation, and they're here analyzing some of the crashworthiness aspects of the passenger cars. The locomotive is equipped with a black box, and in this case it is a black box, not orange like we have on aircraft, and so that records everything that's going on with the vehicle. We also have camera footage from forward-facing cameras that were located on both the BNSF freight trains that went through this section of track prior to the accident train, and also from the accident train itself. The BNSF train that went through immediately before was about 80 minutes prior. And we have experts that are studying the camera footage frame by frame to make sure that we see exactly what the engineer saw or maybe didn't see when we got to that point. The locomotive recorder has given us the speeds of somewhere between 75 and 78 miles per hour. The speed limit on this section of track for passenger trains is 79 miles per hour. The derailment occurred on a gradual right-hand curve, and it occurred prior to reaching the switch that is there for a siding. There was a track inspection conducted on the 23rd by BNSF, and they advise us that they are conducting approximately 2 track inspections every week on this section of track. One issue that we will be looking at very carefully is the possibility that some as we the track so that they can repair it and we can get the trains moving. So at this point, I would be happy to take any questions that you have. I can't answer specific questions about the why something happened, and I already told you what we know about what at this point, but happy to take your questions. Please raise your hand and say who you are and who you're with. Yes, sir.
Miguel with NBC News. Question about the passengers ejected. Do you have a final answer on that? Is that still part of the investigation? And how many passengers possibly were looking at?
So the question is about passenger ejections. No, we do not have a final answer on that. Our experts are now analyzing the cars, looking at what damage occurred there, and obviously the medical personnel will be looking at the injuries of the people, both survivors and the fatalities, to do some analysis there. So we won't know that probably for several months at the earliest. But as I said earlier, this is something that NTSB has looked at, and it has occurred in prior crashes. So it's definitely going to be a point of interest.
And you would physically eject it out of the train or just out of their seats?
We don't know that yet. So the question was somebody ejected out of the train or just out of their seats? These are all the kinds of things that we're going to be looking at and documenting very carefully. Yes, sir.
Sebastian Robertson, K5 News in Seattle. Is there anything that you can rule out at this point?
I don't think we are not ruling anything out at this point. We have ruled everything in. This is our first full day on the ground, and as I say, the team for the on-scene portion will be here for probably the better part of a week. So there's a lot of work to be done yet.
And does that mean that we can expect the track to be closed for a week then?
I don't think that's the case. As soon as the track is able to be opened, as soon as we've documented everything that we need from the track, we'll certainly turn it over to BNSF. Mr. Southworth advises me that he's given permission to move the locomotives and some of the rail cars, so we are making good progress.
Connor McCauley, NBC Montana. There's trains backed up on either side. Will there be any efforts to move those trains out, or will they just wait until the rails are?
So the question is, trains backed up on either side. I think that's probably a better question to put to BNSF. They are probably very keenly aware of that situation. So I would suggest you might want to ask them. Ma'am, you had a question over here?
I just was wondering what the track inspections entail, and if there's been an issue in that spot with the switch and the two tracks.
So the question is, what did the track inspections entail, and have there been prior issues approaching the switch? That's one of the things we're going to look at, and at this point we don't have the answers to that. I went out and walked the track with some of our investigators. There's a lot of ground to cover, and there is significant damage. So our experts are going to be really looking at that. They have a lot of experience in assessing track damage and looking at the damage of the wheels, what they call witness marks, where you have scrapes and gouges both on the tracks, on the cross ties, and in the ballast. Yes, sir.
Another one with Page Incorporated. I was wondering, can you clarify again the speed and how big is the actual scene?
The speed that we got off the recorder, depending upon exactly which time you look at it, is between 75 and 78 miles per hour. The speed limit on this section of track is 79 miles an hour.
And what was the size of this crime scene, or this investigation scene, sorry? How big is the scene?
The scene? I'd say, what would you say the scene is?
You've got some cars that are easily 200, 300 yards away from others. You've got some cars that are easily 200 to 300 yards away from some other cars. If you look at the locomotives and you look at the cars as being 80 to 100 feet, you know, that's the length of the train. But once they've derailed and moved to different places, it gets quite spread out. So 500 yards maybe encompasses the whole scene right now.
I mean, this train
That's a guess. I haven't really actually measured it, but what you're after is it spread out or together. Traditionally, a lot of trains accordion fold. This one's not like that.
I mean, the train was moving at 75 to 78 miles an hour, and they don't stop on a dime even when they come off the track. So it's pretty well spread out.
Last question?
I'm sorry, please speak up.
There were ties along the track before this happened, like there was going to be work to be done. Do you know what the schedule was there?
So the question is, there were ties alongside the track before the accident. That will be one of the questions that we look at. I believe maintenance is going to be a very big concern for us. We don't know at this point exactly what happened, whether it was a track issue, whether it was a mechanical issue with the train. So all of these things are open. And the preliminary report, which, as I said, will be within 30 days, you'll probably start to get a fairly good idea of the general things of what. we won't get to the why because of the analysis until we're a bit farther downstream.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, and we'll hope to see all of you again, hopefully on a social